Hi, Alexis. I'm Maria. Nice to meet you.
Hey, nice to meet you.
I'm from the University of Cincinnati Blue Ash College, and I'm here for just an overview of your job, descriptions, duties, responsibilities, and how the communications industry plays a big factor in your career.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for coming.
No,
Hope you like the place.
Thank you for taking your time to be here with me. So who do you work for, and why specifically did you choose them?
So right now, I work for WLWT, which is owned by Hearst Company. Hearst owns a lot of different stuff. So they own magazines, they own just different brands, they own a ton of television stations, and so they've owned this station for quite a while. And I've always wanted to go into TV. I was that weird kid that always watched the news with their parents. And so I was actually blessed to have a broadcast journalism program at my high school. And so that's when it started. And I was playing junior Olympic volleyball at the time. I thought I wanted to go on a volleyball scholarship. Thought I wanted to do sports journalism too. Realized I didn't like all sports, so that wasn't going to be prosperous. But I was able to hone in and realize I wanted to go to University of Missouri, which is the #1 school of journalism in the nation. Got a scholarship there, which I was so happy about. And really just started there. My first day of college was also my first day at the local station. So been doing it ever since. Thank you.
So cool. So just give me a basic description, just an overview of what your regular duties and designated tasks are within here.
Absolutely. So I get to work at 3:30 every morning. American time, yes, it is very early. Usually I come straight in, they let me know what they want me to work on. Sometimes I know ahead of time, but most of the time we're talking about it right then and there. And normally I'm out of the door onto wherever my assignment is by 4 o'clock. Sometimes I have to go live. My first live hit is what we would call it when you see me on TV. My first live hit would be at like 4:30, and I'm usually every 30 minutes, sometimes every 15 minutes if it's breaking news. And every time just with a different angle, with a different way to communicate what's happening, bring people there, let them understand why they need to see themselves in this, why this impacts them. And so I do that from about 4:30 to 7 o'clock until the Today Show comes on. Then I come back. I think I try to take a lunch-ish, I guess breakfast, really. And then I pick up a whole new story. So that story will complete for the noon show, and also leave something for the 5 or 6 o'clock. So it's like boom, 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 boom. Like this shift moves very fast, and I'm being pulled many different directions. But you know, it moves, so that's
your
good.
Recordings are very versatile.
Very much so, and that's one of the reasons why I like the morning show, because you can be funny, you can be interesting, you can be serious. You know, in the morning show, I think we do way more than your average person. So I think that's really good.
Is it kind of a relief to you?
You know, from time to time, I mean, I do cover a lot of hard news, which overall, I mean, I think hard news is important. I always try to be a people-first journalist, though, and really tell people stories. That's a blessing. That's an honor when people allow you to tell their stories. So either way, whether it's happy or whether it might be a little sad, but it's impactful, I appreciate it all.
Of course. Now, what exactly did you do in order of your career path? How did you get the position you did today?
You know, I did a lot of internships. I was very hands-on. So I told you that my first day at the station was also my first day in college. And at University of Missouri, they are one of the only schools that have an actual affiliate in town that's, you know, also affiliated with the college. What's different about my track was that most people don't go there until they're about juniors or seniors. You know, I was a freshman, so by the time I was a junior, I was on staff. I was getting paid. I wasn't an intern anymore. I also had interned at NBC Washington, which was awesome. And it really showed me like who I needed to know and what skill that I needed to have. This is a business all about skill, right? Like It's not enough just to get your degree. Like you have to really know, show and prove. Like if they put you out on a breaking news story, do you know what to do? You know, how do people respond to you? So right after I finished working at KOMU in Columbia, Missouri, and I also was working at Newsy, so I had 2 jobs at one time. I started working at KATV, the ABC affiliate in Little Rock, Arkansas. That was a bit of a culture shock. I had never really lived in the South before. I learned so much though, and I really grew up a lot in that 2 years, and it was a blessing. And so from there, my news director, who I currently have, is also a Mizzou alum, and so we had a similar mentor who knew that I was ending my time in Little Rock, and he said, hey, you know, what do you think about Cincinnati? And I was like, well, I've never really thought about Cincinnati. I'm from the Chicago area, and so I'm a Midwest girl. So I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And I came and visited, and I've been here ever since. So it's been about 3.5 years since I moved here.
That's cool.
Thank you.
That's so cool. Okay, so it seems that you have a lot of connections, many contacts that you can get into. But what would you suggest for as a typical career pathway for just other students?
Whatever you want to do, make sure that you actually try to do it first. Earlier today, I had a student from Roger Bacon who is a senior in high school. She shadowed me all day. And, I wanted her to come in and to see. We normally don't do shadows here, but I've seen her trying to work on it on her own, and I wanted her to see the real of what this is. A lot of people think that this is like glamorous. It's not necessarily the most glamorous, hence the fact that I'm sitting over here in a hoodie right now. But it is a very real job. It's a very gritty job. It's a very authentic job. And so I think a lot of times people don't really get a chance to be exposed to that. They only see the end product, which is what they see on TV.
Right.
There's a difference between being a reporter and being an anchor and being a photographer, and they're all necessary, right? And so I think that that piece, whatever you want to do, like for instance, my sister wants to go into forensic anthropology, and it's her first year in college. And I told her, I said, listen, this is great, explore it, take all the classes, but what are you doing in the summer? What companies are you going to intern with? That is the best way, because you will see things that you just can't teach. Yeah,
right.
In a classroom, shadow people. They don't have an internship available. Say, hey, I would love to see what you do. Some people might say no, but that's the biggest thing that they can say is no. So you might as well ask.
Perfect. And so, describe your work setting, the work environment here. Do you find yourself being high stressed, or just is it kind of easygoing here?
It's a very high stress job. But that's the news business. It's 24 hours. When I leave here at 12:30, 1 o'clock, there's a whole new shift of people coming in. And when they leave, there's a whole new shift of people coming in. The news doesn't sleep, right? And we're dealing with the human form. So, humans are complicated. Just because it's high stress doesn't mean that we don't have fun. But at the same time, there are a lot of deadlines. I can tell you right now, when I've been talking for a minute, I've grown to understand what that feels like. Up to the minute, deadlines, so important. We have very short deadlines, big deadlines. Today alone, I did 3 different stories, 2 long form. And so while most people are like, okay, I have like 2 weeks to work on a work project, I have a matter of minutes or hours. So that's why I would say it's high stress.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and we back time. If I know that I have to be live by 5 o'clock, that means that I need to be on scene by 5:40 for my photographer to be able to set everything up. That means that I need to have everything approved and tracked by probably about 3:50 if I'm really lucky. And that means I have to have my makeup on, ready to go by maybe 3:15. So you see what I'm saying? You have to know where your end goal is in order to know where you're going.
Right.
And that's constantly. I'm constantly thinking in time. So
other than time management, do you find yourself being direct, working with others, or alone?
This is a very team effort, big team effort. TV doesn't happen without a team. That's one of the reasons why if you go on any news station website, it'll always say news team.
Right.
It's a team. It doesn't work with just me or just the photographer or just the folks out in the control room. It has to be everybody. So you have to know how to communicate with people and know that you're not working with robots.
Right.
I know the photographers that I work with. I know the producers that I work with. I know their strengths. I know their weaknesses. They know my strengths and my weaknesses. And we have to fill in the gap in those places so that way we all have the end product that we want.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's super cool to learn about. Other than that, what are the biggest challenges that you face here?
I think a couple of things. I'm pretty young to be in this market. Most people would be in this market for their 4th or 5th job. I sit next to people who have been beating these streets for longer than I've been alive. So that's wonderful because I learned so much, from them. I've been to so many retirement parties in the last year and a half. People who've been here for 30, 35, 40 years, which is amazing, especially in the news business nowadays. You don't see that as much, anymore because it's a hard business to stay in. But I think at first it was just being acclimated. I'm not from here. Cincinnati is a very neighborhood-centric place. They're very proud of their traditions. And so I tried to delve in as fast as I could. And I was really proud of myself because I've been able to really become a part of the community because that's what I wanted. Not everybody wants that, but I really desired that because I believe that if I don't know the community, if I'm not a part of the community, if I'm not the community, how am I supposed to report on the community?
Yeah.
You'd be so out of touch, you know what I mean?
Right.
So
do you find yourself being, included in, is this a very inclusive community?
Yes, I would say so, but there's always going to be places where you're not. And I think that's the importance of having a diverse newsroom. I'm also the president of Greater Cincinnati Association of Black Journalists, our NABJ chapter here. I used to serve NABJ nationally. And I'm very passionate about making workspaces, specifically journalism-related workspaces, diverse because it's necessary.
Right.
I bring a different perspective to the table than my white male counterparts,
Right.
as they do as well. I bring a different perspective to the table than my Latinx counterparts, right? But they're all important because that's what the community looks like. So we all have a responsibility to bring something to the table. And many of the things that we're bringing to the table are just experiences. But we're reporting on people's experiences. And that's why those experiences are important.
So you think it's important to really understand other people's backgrounds and ethnicities and how those all come together? And
You cannot be in the people business and not understand those things. I mean, there is no such thing as not seeing color. You got to. In this job, you have to. You have to see circumstance.
Right.
You have to see it all.
Okay. Throughout our surroundings, we see much technology. So
A lot.
the following question is, what is the technology impact here in your career?
I mean, it's driving the industry. That's one of the reasons why so many old dogs are, as we call them, old dogs, are retiring, because it's making everything faster, bigger, more, when it comes to technology. It used to be back in the day, you were responsible for one story to make it on TV, and that was it. Now I'm responsible for multiple stories. I am typing up everything for them to read as far as the anchors and myself. I'm tweeting, I'm on Facebook. I'm responsible for my web story.
Media.
Yes, it's all because people are not consuming in one platform anymore. They're consuming at whatever they can get their hands on first.
Right.
Exactly. No matter what the age is, So technology has really driven the trajectory of where this business is going, and it's going to continue doing that.
What is the best thing about this job and the worst?
So the best thing is the fact that I do something different every single day. I get a backstage pass to life, and it's awesome. I get a chance to be at the moments, the miracle moments. I get a chance to see the tragedies and then the triumphs. I get a chance to see it all, okay? And that is special. I think the worst part of this job is the fact that you're always fighting. You're fighting people who think that they hate the media. You're fighting to get stories. You're fighting folks in your newsroom so they can understand, so you can understand. You're fighting all the time. You're really pushing. This is not a job where you can be passive. You have to really get after it if you really want a good end result.
Yes, be very specific, logistics and everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so with your company, is there any opportunities of internships that they offer?
There are. And what I tell people, Carolyn Armstrong is the person to talk to here at our station. She's actually downstairs. She might be in a meeting right now. But always email her, and she runs our program. They usually do fall, spring, and summer for a certain amount of weeks. I'm putting on my GCABJ president hat now. All of the news stations do some form of internship. I always tell people, especially in the communication field, if you are interested, if you're interested in the spring semester, you should be looking at this stuff now, November, December. If you're interested in the summer is always more competitive because more people are home. You should be looking at that, January, February. It's better to be early. It's better to have a direct link, than to wait to the last minute because you're going to get beat out. It's a competition.
It's hard. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, brother. Are these internship opportunities paid or unpaid?
So here they are unpaid, but for instance, the one that I had with NBC Washington was paid. So it just really depends on what your desire is. My main thing that I tell people is make sure that it's interactive. You should be getting your hands on stuff. You should be turning stories. You should be really doing it, not just getting coffee. Absolutely. Absolutely. And ask that. I asked people when I was interviewing for these jobs, I was like, okay, so this is more than just getting coffee, correct? I'm looking to do this, and this. I mean, that's how direct you have to be.
Very.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I also think that it's very important just to get hands-on, like you said.
Yeah.
And not only focusing, if it is paid, more towards that learning experience that you'll gain.
Absolutely. But also be realistic. I knew that I couldn't be living in DC and not be getting paid something.
Right.
Because I needed to live. I needed to eat. Right? So do what you can.
Do you think it's easier to go and start local?
I think it depends on whatever your goal is. Go after your goal. Reach high, reach big. I had a friend, she's always loved the NBA. She's just always loved the NBA. Her first internship was with the NBA. She continued to be with the NBA. Her first job out of college was with the NBA. So if that's what you want to do, go after it.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Now, what would you say are the entry-level qualifications for a new employee here?
You have to definitely know how to be able to write and be on a deadline.
Okay.
So understanding that broadcast writing is very different than writing a paper or an essay. It's even different than the web story that you're going to write later on that day. Understanding AP style is very, very important. You have to be trustworthy, not only with your facts, but the fact that if they say, hey, you're going to be ready at 5 o'clock, the producer doesn't want to be waiting for your stuff at 4:58. You know, how responsible you are, how dependable you are is really your worth in this business.
Okay. And so I've finalized this because I've learned so much about, what your job pertains and what those qualifications that they look for really, and how typical students tend to pursue this career.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, thank
I
you.
loved it. And
Yay!
I am so glad I met you.
I'm happy to have met you too. And now you have all my information. The biggest thing for me is authenticity. Really just go after it. I cannot stand when I see people not go after it. I mean, the worst they can say is no. So many people are just so afraid to be rejected.
Right.
I mean, it happens. But if they say yes, look how much further along you are.
Yeah, and acceptance is one of the final steps, and rejection is one of the
Absolutely.
Growth steps that you have to take.
Absolutely. And it could be a blessing. Maybe it rejected you right to where you needed to be.
Right. Faith.
Yes.
And hope.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Alexis.
Absolutely.
It was really great meeting you.
Oh my
Thank you for this
gosh.
interview. Hopefully it all goes well in your future.
Yes.
And
What do you want to do?
my end goal is to be an international news correspondent.
Awesome. So are you
definitely
applying for like the
trying to go.
BBC, CNN?
See, I haven't applied for anything yet.
Okay, so that's your homework. So
I
y'all
know.
heard it, right? So your homework is to apply and just go big and realize that there are different companies that have different reaches, You might be surprised.
One of the biggest advice I always get from people is start local. So I don't know how that could apply. If
They're
I'm
both
doing
two different
something very
things.
Global, yeah.
What I would tell you is focus on your storytelling. Know how to do that. And if doing that locally helps you, then do that. But start to study. How often are you really studying the people that are doing what you're doing right now? How much do you look at their scripts, look at how they're presenting themselves? Those are things you could be doing right now. There are teleprompter apps on your phone. You could be practicing right now.
Right. That's one of the biggest advice my mom tells me. Like, look at how they speak, how they develop all their speeches.
Absolutely.
The reports. Look at their facial expressions.
Yes.
Everything like that is very important.
Some of my best interviews were because I was able to communicate with them without saying a word. So remember that. You're in the people business. And it's a great business to be in.
And I not only want to be that, because my plans may change, but something where social justice is being practiced, and I could be like an advocate in a way.
So that's what you really have to ask yourself. With this business, it's hard to be an advocate
Right.
for certain things. I mean, I'm
Your
definitely
opinion, you don't want to really put your opinion into.
depending on who you work for. I mean, it's all about, sometimes people think that, oh, I just want to be a journalist. And don't get me wrong, being a journalist is awesome. But sometimes people just really want to be commentators. So, and that's what they go on and do, Or sometimes people just want to be truth seekers. And they're willing to see the truth in either way, in either direction. Ask yourself, what is it that I want to do? If it makes you uncomfortable, that's probably good. Because you have to remember that great things don't come in comfort zones. So, once you push yourself and ask yourself, do I really like this? Do I really care to be around these people? Okay, fantastic. So now that we've gotten past that question, let's go on to the next. And don't be afraid to change your mind. Give yourself grace. I think my biggest flaw in life has been I didn't give myself enough grace. I wanted to be perfect like that. I wanted to have it like that. I was willing to work, and I was like, I work hard, I should have it. But I have to understand that life doesn't work that way. Life happens. And as much good as there is, you have to be willing to take all of it and learn from it and be like, okay, cool, what's next?
Yeah. How do you work with insensitive subjects? Not insensitive, but sensitive. Things that are buried, topics. How do you deal with those?
I always take a look at things and say, okay, how do I have this conversation in a way that allows me to reveal a truth, even if I don't like the truth? Right? So for instance, on Let's Talk Cincy, this weekend, we're doing a show on jail overcrowding in the Hamilton County Jail. Jail is made for about 868 people. There's about 1,400 people in there right now, give or take. So what does that look like? How are people being treated? I sat down with the sheriff. You know, we had a good conversation. He actually agreed with a lot of the things that people out there were saying. But I had to also understand and educate myself on what he could even do.
Right.
Legally, what can he do? You know?
Policies. Yeah.
Correct. And what could he be doing better? I asked him, what are you not doing well? What do you think you're not doing well? That's like when I go to job interviews. I ask them, who's the last person that you fired and why? I want to know. Who's the last person you had an issue with and why? What was it about them? What was it about your relationship that you had an issue with? Is it an awkward question to ask? Absolutely. But if I understand that, now I know what I'm getting myself into.
Right.
If I don't ask the right questions, I cannot be upset when I see the answers in front of me. That's really important.
Right. Thank you so much. I learned so much from you in so little time. But thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
You're awesome. I'm so excited to see where you go.
Thank you so much. It means a lot to me.
Absolutely.
Bye, fellow audience.